Hi, my name is Shara, and I am a host of the Life Stories podcast. I am so excited to have a conversation with Pearl.
Hey everybody, it's Pearl Chiarenza again with Women's Successful Living, and I'm so excited to bring you another Conversations with Pearl. And today I have a really fun guest who's actually a podcaster herself, and her name is Shara Goswick, and she's the host of Life Stories. Since October 22, she's been sharing stories about her life and lessons she's learned along the way, as well as having conversations with guests who had a desire to do the same. She believes that everybody has a story to share. And how many times I tell you guys, you have a book you need to write. So on a personal level, she has talked about what it was like being a teen mom, how she's navigated raising a child with autism, and her faith, how important it is to her. Her guests have been authors, individual working with incredible nonprofits in the US and abroad. And she loves getting to highlight the way people are helping people all around the world. And now that her kids are grown, she is enjoying the new season of talking and listening to the hearts of others around her. From her home in Texas, and hopefully she says soon to be on the road, she'll continue to sharing stories about life for as long as she can. Welcome to the show, Shara.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to have another podcaster on. I love that you're here with me.
I love it. I love getting to talk to other people doing the same thing. I know I have a lot to learn from you.
I think we all do. And, it's funny you talk about being on the road and empowering others, and the stories, I often share on the show here. When I coach my nonprofit women at the Mary Martha House, I tell each and every one of them, you guys, you have a story to share, like write your story, even if you never publish it, but you just maybe print it out for your family, your friends, like leave that legacy behind for people. I think it's so important. Would you agree?
Oh, totally. I think everybody has a story to share.
Yeah. So I like to do a little thing here on this show. It's something fun that we like to do. I like to go back in time. I find that often when I ask this question, it really parallels to what we do today in our life. And so the question is, when you were a little girl and you were thinking about what do I want to be when I grow up? We all do that, whether it's going to be a teacher, I want to be an astronaut, be the president, not me, but be president of the US someday. I don't want that responsibility, right? But
Right.
like when you think back to that little girl, what did she want to do? And how is that compared to what you're doing today in your life?
I think I had a lot of different aspirations as we all do as children. I probably wanted to be a teacher. I remember wanting to be an accountant, which that never would have worked. I'll just tell you right now. The only thing I know that I wanted to do was be a mom. Like that's the only thing that I know I remember thinking that as a kid that I wanted to be a mom someday. And so I've done that for sure.
And you know what? And I think that that's cool that because we don't all need to go on a path to like, I want to become something. I mean, being a mom is an amazing journey, right? It's a job in itself. Let's just be real there, right?
Yeah.
And so I know when I was a little girl, I wanted to be a teacher. And so I didn't necessarily have the guidance on how to go about doing that. So I didn't get to go to school, didn't get to learn to be a teacher. I became somewhat an accounts receivable guru, but I never had an accounting degree. And not that I want to learn numbers, because if my husband's listening right now, so yeah, don't do that. That's called Pearl math, and Pearl math doesn't work very well.
Nor does mine.
But as I got older and I started on my life journey, I have become a teacher, and the coaching that I do with others and coaching other, especially women, to understand that we want to wear these different hats, whether it's working out of the home, working in the home. Mom is a job. I say all the time, somebody will say, I'm just a stay-at-home mom. I'm like, not just.
Right.
Not just. You are a CEO mom of that house because you are running a business of that house. And so being a mom is just an amazing thing. And so tell us a little bit about your family.
So I have 3 grown children. I've been married next month. It will be for 32 years. We were married literally a month after we graduated from high school, after already having our first kid. We did everything out of order. But my kids are all grown. They're almost all in their 30s now. My oldest is married and has a family of her own. And so I have 2 granddaughters that I just think are the most wonderful creatures on the planet. Even though they're grown and so our youngest son lives with us. He is 28 and he is high functioning autistic. So he lives with us. But even though they're grown, I still stay busy. helping my son, or when my daughter needs help with the girls, I'm able to do that, or running errands for my husband, or taking care of the house, or whatever. I stay really busy, plus all the podcast things. I just was recently asked to start a podcast for my church. So that launches this Sunday. So that's what I've been frantically working on the last few days, getting that done. I stay really busy at home doing all the same things. My kids aren't little running around, but I'm still doing mom and wife things here.
And I think that's, I mean, it's so true. Even like we're empty nesters and also grieving parents at the same time,
Right.
and so it doesn't change. I mean, there's always something that can be done or that you can do for your life, for yourself. I love that you're doing podcasting and then also now doing with the church. I think it's so cool that when people see something that we're doing and they really like it, and they're like, how can we make that part of us? I think it's so powerful because you're changing the world. And that's why I do this podcast too, is I originally started out wanting to just have conversations. And we have some exciting news that's coming about our podcast in a few weeks. But I just love to have conversations around life, like what's happening in life, and that, it's not always rosy, but there are great
Right.
things that can happen. But there's also things that can be a challenge and that can take us off our game for a minute or two. But how we still continue to live our life is so important. So tell
Yeah.
us a little bit about your podcast.
So I started my podcast for fun. I don't know what year it was. I guess podcasts were kind of becoming really popular. And so I bought a microphone on Amazon because I thought I can do that. I can do it. And I just left it in the box. I never even took it out of the box for like 4 or 5 years. And every time I'd walk by it, I'd think, yeah, that'll be fun. And then I thought, nobody's going to listen. Why would I want to do this? I talk myself out of it every time. And I ended up giving that microphone away. And so there were some things that I needed to get right in my heart, just some stuff I need to get rid of. And I wanted to do it again. I thought, I'm just going to do it. So I bought a microphone and I kind of practiced and did one, and sent it to a few people. And they were very supportive. But I thought, are they just being nice? Are they, is this something? And I was like, I either need to do it or stop talking about it because I could do that forever, go back and forth. And so I did. And I started getting really sweet compliments. I'm not the best. I'm still learning. I've been doing it a year and a half, still learning a lot. But initially, it was just me, just, telling stories from my own life. And then as I started speaking to people, I realized, not on purpose, but the people I was talking to, they were all helping in some way, whether they had been through a struggle or they had a nonprofit or whatever it was, they were all doing something. And so then I decided to start reaching out specifically to people that were helping others. So then I started targeting nonprofits, and I realized I was also speaking to people all over the United States. So, all these different states. And I thought, I'm going to set a goal and I'm going to talk to somebody in every state. So that's where I am right now. I'm halfway through. I think I've got 25 or 26 after this month. And so I'm halfway there. I've spoken to someone in England, which that was just for fun. He's not helping anybody. He was an author of a book that I really liked, and he said yes. I spoke to a woman in Latvia who has a nonprofit over there. She's from Texas, but she's in Latvia now. And then this morning, very early, I had an interview with a woman in Australia. Yeah. And so I'm having fun talking to people. People are doing amazing things across the world. I could tell you every state that I've talked to and what they're doing. It just amazes me. And I look for people who are doing unique things. I did speak to someone with Salvation Army, which everybody's very familiar with, but I like finding unique organizations that are doing things you don't hear about everywhere. And I am having a ball.
I love it. And I love that you're doing that. And I just want to go back for a little bit. A couple of things you said. One is so those that are listening, we just got an example from Shara about the fact that you have a goal, right? And you start it and you walk past that microphone for 5 years, I think you said, right?
Yeah.
And so we look at that goal, but you never gave up. In the back of your head, something was sort of tapping you on the shoulder, going, come on, why are we sitting here, Shara? Let's go, let's go.
Yeah.
And so I love that you even after you gave the microphone away, you still circled back around. You did that thing that was calling on your heart. And I think it's important, I want the listeners to understand and to hear that sometimes we have a vision and it may not be the right timing, right? So for
Right.
you at that time, it just wasn't the right timing. You really needed to figure out, well, what am I going to do? What am I going to talk about? What's important to me to share to the world? And I love that you took and said, let's talk to people that are helping other people, that we can spotlight them, share them, but get them out. And then on top of that, you guys, like Shara had a goal. I'm like
Yeah.
talking to somebody in every state. So I'm in Florida. I don't know if you got anybody in Florida yet, but I can get somebody for you. So,
I do. I have Florida.
yay. So
Yeah.
I just think it's so cool because, and then the highlight, like there's so many nonprofits in the world. And there, I mean, which is so amazing that there's so many people that want to help their community and help the world. And so to have somebody like you that's like, let's try to spotlight some of them. And so if you're listening, we're going to put in the show notes how to reach out to her. So that way, if you have a nonprofit, we don't know what state she is, but you certainly can reach out. And I'm sure she'll talk to others even more than once in a state.
Oh,
But
sure. Sure.
but I think it's an important message for others to understand that just because you have a goal and it didn't happen when you thought it was going to happen, or maybe you were a little fearful of stepping into
Right.
the goal, right? It doesn't mean it has to go dormant, right? You can pick it
Yeah.
back up and look for it. And I love that you did that. And then also too that you sure that you got people around you to give you feedback, right? So like you said, I
Yes.
mean, our friends are like, oh yeah, it sounds great. But like to have and then you move forward. I think it's so important. I mean, how in your life have mentors or where in your life too? Let's talk about mentors for a second, but also was there another time in your life where you're like that you didn't do something because you let your saboteur stop you from doing it and you look back and go, man, I wish I would have done that then.
No, that's one thing that I may not be fully prepared. I may not have everything I need, but if I get something in my mind that I'm going to do this, then I'll do it. And it may fall apart and maybe a flop, but that's just how I am. And one example of that is I had a bakery for a little over a year. It was not successful. I mean, I loved to bake. I still love to bake. I still thoroughly enjoy it. I loved meeting people. I met so many wonderful people that came in and I loved it, but I am not a business person at all. That part did not go well. And so it wasn't successful. It wasn't like I had this big thriving bakery, but I do not regret for one moment trying it at all. I mean, I had a life coach for about 6 months and she talked about that. She said, every time you start talking about your bakery, you just light up. And I said, I know. And I didn't make any money. Like I lost a lot of money in that, but I am so thankful that I did it. I don't regret it at all. And so I can't think of anything that I wish I would have done. I wish I would have done some things differently. I wish I would have done the business part of my bakery differently. Maybe I wouldn't have lost so much money. I wrote some books several years ago and they're kids' books and they're not, anything fancy, but I wish I would have taken a little more time, to make things look better and look a little bit more professional. So I don't have a problem stepping out and doing it. I have a problem stepping out and doing it too fast,
And I think
not
that's a
slowing
great,
down.
but I think that's a great, there's a couple good tips in there. It's like you stepped out and you did it. Like you didn't even, no matter what, you didn't not do it. Like you said, I want to
Yeah.
do this, and then to say, like you said, looking back, maybe would have done things differently, right? And we
Yeah.
do that. Like we reevaluate. I think it's important to reevaluate so that we bounce forward. We can say, you know what? I did the bakery this way and I did the books this way. Now, if I want to start a new business or a bakery,
Right.
or if I want to do more books, I need to have, the right tools to start a business. I need to know finances or, whatever
Right.
that piece was you were missing, right? And then the books, like maybe it's, looking back going forward, having the right publisher, having good editor, those kind of things. Like I know we're doing a book right now. Our son Matthew, who passed in 2022, he had seen me do a couple books. He's like, Mom, we should do a book on adoptions of a different culture. And I'm like, well, what does that look like to you, right? And he's like, I want to talk about raising children from a different culture, like
Wow.
how that affect the adoptee, how that affects the family, what kind of challenges did the adoptee have, what kind of challenges did the family have, and so we were going to do that together.
Yeah.
And, unfortunately, because he passed, I was like, you know what? This was something that was on his heart. So I want to
Mm.
honor him. So we're actually doing that right now. But like
That's
you, I
great.
want to do it the right way. Like we're
Right.
trying to do it by July 7th, but we're probably halfway through the number of authors that we want. We really want 25. But
Mhm.
I mean, you met Pam Owens we met each
Yes.
other at a conference together. I've known Pam for years. And Pam, two things Pam did for me is I reached out, like what you said. I reached out and I said, I want to name this book, but I'm struggling with the title. I was talking about raising a child of, I think, like I had this, I can't remember the title. It's so bad. I remember. And Pam's like, well, but you don't want families. I think we're talking about just raising a child, being an all Black child and all white family. We're kind of talking about, and she's like, why are you honing yourself into just that? There's so many other
Yeah.
families that have adopted different cultures. I'm like, oh, didn't think about that. Like getting that clarity, right, for the next step.
Right.
And then she actually helped me come up with the title. I tell Pam all the time, I'm so blessed by God that he was put her in my life because she's like,
Yeah.
what about Beyond Skin Deep Stories of Intercultural Adoptions? I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so
Wow.
cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then when I
Yeah.
just saw her the other day, and this is why I said a few minutes ago about having the people in your life that will inspire you, hold you accountable, and make you question things in your life. So when I saw her about a month ago, I said, oh, she's at, how's the book coming? Like, oh man, I'm struggling. I only have 8 authors right now. I really want it out for July. I know July is too late to do it the right way. And she's like, what if it's the number of the people it's supposed to be right now? And what if you just pick a different date to bring it out? I'm like going, oh, I didn't think
You're
about
so
it that
smart.
way. Right. Right. I mean, but that's having people in your circle. I mean, you and I both heard it together at the conference, the people in your front row, the people in your
Right.
circle, having those people in your life that will help you go, oh, let me think about it differently. Or, oh,
Yeah.
I can still do that bakery again. And I can do it this way to be more successful. I can still do those books again. And if I just do XYZ, it would be even better. It was great. And I can make it better. Right.
Right.
So, yeah. What are your thoughts on some of that?
I totally agree. I think we need people like that in our life, not just to give us ideas, but to help us. Okay, maybe this is not the best idea. Maybe this is not the best direction. One time, we're both in behind our brand, that community of women, and we had a check-in Zoom call one time with several people, and I presented an idea about my podcast, and I thought it was a good idea. Nobody else thought it was a good idea, and nobody was ugly about it. Everybody was very supportive, but they all kind of felt the same way. And I thought, okay, maybe I don't need to do this. Maybe this is the wrong direction. So we need that. I need that. I
Right.
don't want to be that same person that I was that just jumps out and does everything just because I think it's good. I need those people to kind of, hold me back. Let me think a little bit before I jump into it.
Kind of like having that girlfriend that tells you, don't go out wearing that outfit. You don't look great in
Yes.
it.
Right.
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 I think it's so cool. So a lot of things we talk about on here too, Shara, is that we talk about self-care. We talk about finding harmony in life. And I know, you were sharing your family. We talked about the story a little bit. And so kind of if it's okay with you, I love to have you share a little bit about the journey of having, your child that's with autism. I know I have right now, I'm hanging out with my nephew. He's on the spectrum. And then my niece, not my niece, my son had a girlfriend. She already had a little girl. She's like our granddaughter, and she just recently was diagnosed. So
Oh, wow.
talk to those moms that are listening about self-care, about trying to find balance when, because there's different challenges that come up, but overall in general, how did you find time for yourself, but also balance, the needs of your kids and especially your son? Because I know watching my family, there's different things that they need, and it's nothing wrong with it. It's just that you've got to like advocate. I'm watching like the advocacy that they're both doing with their schools and such like that. Will you talk to us about how you manage that and how that was for you?
I actually talked to a woman at the conference about this. She and I had a Zoom call after the conference because she's the same thing. She has a son that's 5, that's on the spectrum. He's going through lots of stuff. And so she asked me the same question. How did you do it? And I said, well, I don't think I did it very well. He was my youngest son. And so I had 3 kids in 4 years. So my husband was in school or working all the time. So I was at home a lot with those 3 kids, and I struggled. It was hard. What I wish I would have done now is ask for help more. There was a period of time where we lived far away from our families, and so I couldn't. Um, I wish I had asked for time more, but what I wish they would understand is not to feel guilty for asking for time for yourself. It doesn't mean you're gone all the time. It doesn't mean you go for days on end, but an hour, it's okay to ask for that. If you are empty, if you are just exhausted and have nothing left, you're not going to be able to help and be effective for your family. And it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to ask. to have a break. There's nothing wrong with that. That is, you're human. You're not superwoman. You're human. So you need that. I think moms in general need that, but especially for special need moms. So my son is, he's a grown man. He is an adult, but he still has to live with us. And he can't drive. He doesn't want to drive, nor is he able. So I am responsible for taking him anywhere he's got to go. Um, he is very smart, but there are a lot of things he doesn't understand about life. And so he can get taken advantage of very easily. So even at this age, I feel like I'm still momming, even though he's grown, I feel like I'm still having a mom a lot. And so thankfully he is able to stay by himself so I can go and I don't have to be home, 24 hours a day, and he doesn't need a caretaker or anything, but I still feel like I'm momming. So it's been a long time.
And I love that you said that too. Like for moms in general, definitely, that's one of the things I talk about is like finding time for self-care and without feeling guilty, because
Right.
like you said it 100%. And then you add that next layer about having a child that's got some special needs, and, very uniquely created for us in this world.
Mhm.
And so we have to advocate. So we have to, the advocacy, and then making that time. It's so, so important. And I, like you said, ask for help, because I know, especially moms, we tend to think we can't ask for help. And
Right.
and it's so important if you're listening, even as a caregiver. So whether you're caregiving for a child or you're caregiving for an elderly, we need a break. You have to take that mental break, and it's okay to ask. One of the things that I'm coaching a client on right now, she's a caregiver, and I'm like, create the list of those people who say, if you need anything, let me know. Create that list so you can call.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what, Mary Jane? You said if I need anything, I need to go to the store for like 20 minutes, and I just need somebody here for 20 minutes. Can you do that? Right? Because that's so important, because they ask for a reason. They tell you that for a reason. And they're being very genuine. And then if you call them and they don't, just be like, okay, thank you very much, because they have a right to say no as well. But
Right.
I love that you said that. Like, we need to ask for help. And in general, there's nothing wrong in asking for help. There's no guilt. There
Right.
should be no shame, nothing. Because like you said, if we're not showing up and doing for ourselves, we cannot be there the way we want to be for our friends, our family,
Yeah.
our job, our business, whatever that is. And so it's really, really important to do that. So I want to ask you, what's your favorite thing? If you had a magic wand and you could do whatever you want all day long for self-care, like everybody and anything was taken care of for you, they just said, tell us what it is and let's go do it. Where are you going for your self-care? What are you doing? And is there anybody with you?
No, I'm by myself. I am at the beach with an unlimited amount of books. That's what I'm doing. That's all for when we go on vacation, which it's been a couple of years since we've been able to go. That's all I want to do. I want to be at the water in the sun with a book from sun up until sundown. That's it for me.
So what are you reading on the beach?
Um, all kinds of things. I read a lot of fiction. I like biographies, but I read a lot of fiction. My daughter is just now to the point, because her kids are old enough where she has time to read and she's enjoying it. So we've been sharing a lot of books, which has been fun.
That's
But
cool.
lots of fiction. Yeah, lots of fiction, some biographies. When I have a guest on, I try to get their book ahead of time and read it before I talk to them. So I've got lots of self help and different kinds of books that I read also. But yeah, mostly fiction.
That's awesome. And so when you're on the beach, like, do you have your favorite beach you want to go to? Or what's your
No, I
bucket?
mean,
If you could be dropped at any beach, which beach would it be?
so Florida beaches are my favorite, Destin or Panama City, or we went to Orange Beach the last time I think we went, and it was beautiful. Texas beaches, I love Texas. I'm the
Yeah.
biggest fan of Texas. I have my Texas. Their beaches are awful. I love Texas, but their beaches stink. You've been to Florida and you've been to Alabama. Texas beaches are awful. They just are.
It's so funny you're saying that, because we do a pajama retreat every year. So every September, I have a soulful self-care PJ retreat where the women show
Uh-huh.
up on a Thursday and we check out on Monday morning, and we're in our PJs or sweats the entire weekend. And
Yeah.
and everybody's like, why don't you do it in Florida? I'm like,
I,
The Florida beaches are great, but because everybody comes here, they're so freaking expensive for a house of 20,
Yeah.
24 women. So we actually go to the Gulf Shores of Alabama.
Yes.
And you know our friend Lisa Pulliam, she
Yes.
introduced me to those beaches. I'm like, they're so
Gulf Shores is
pretty.
great.
Oh my gosh. And
Yes.
it's so quiet. Like we've been
Yes.
going there for this will be our fourth year, I think, there. And it's so quiet. And we've been to Destin too 1 year for our retreats, but it was so noisy. Like
Yes.
everybody's
It's so
from
busy.
Florida. Yeah. So
Hmm.
if I want to go for soulful self-care, I want quiet. Now, the
Yes.
only downside sometimes is there is a few more jellyfish that time of the year that I would like,
Oh,
but but it's so much fun. And that I'm
yeah.
glad you said beaches because I love the beach. You know,
Mm.
everybody laughs at me. I can't swim, but I love the ocean.
Yeah.
And as long as I can touch the ground, I'm good. But yet
Yeah.
nothing will stop me from getting on a boat in the middle of the ocean. People laugh at me. They're like,
Yeah.
"You're kind of crazy, bro." I'm like, that's just how I am, you know. But I love that. And I love that you shared too, like having, having the time, making that time for yourself. How often do you get to do something for yourself during the day? How many times a week can you do something quietly?
Um, I mean, every day I have a little bit of quiet time to myself. I read or, I'm reading my Bible every day that I keep it quiet when I do that. But I read quietly or I'll go sit out. We live out on property, lots of land, and it's fairly quiet outside. And so I'll go sit on the back porch and just not do anything, just be quiet and watch my cats and my puppy.
I love that. So for those that are listening that maybe struggle for self-care. So if you think back, like you said, like you started young, you had babies before, very young and you got married young. I did too. By the way, congratulations, 32 years. Chuck and
Thank
I
you.
will be
Thank you.
together 40 years this year. Next year we'll be
Awesome.
married. Couple, yeah, 2 more years we'll be married 40 years. So
Wow.
it's so amazing to hear those stories because it's not too common right now. So
Right.
I love hearing those stories. But take us back to that time when you had the little ones running around and your husband's going to school and are working like you were sharing. How did you find time to, because we often hear people say, oh, I got my kids are so busy, I don't have time for myself. Did you struggle with that when you were younger?
Mhm.
And
I did. I did. It took me a long time and a lot of um, healing, a lot of counseling and things that I needed to get through to understand that it was okay to take the time for myself. I mean, I struggled with it. I didn't think it was important. It wasn't necessary. Everybody else has needs. That's just how I lived for a really long time. And so I did. I struggled with that.
did you, when you finally decided that you needed to improve on that, like were your kids older? Were they like
My
out of the
kids were
house?
older, yeah, out of the house. I think when I finally did have time that I could, but when they were in the house, I should have taken some time for me, and I just didn't. I just
And with
didn't.
that, and that happens. Like that's what's in the real world right now, right? That's what's
Yeah,
happening in the real world right now. We get so busy, we get so overwhelmed with everything we have to do that we forget that we have to take time for
right.
ourselves. What would you say to that mom, like looking back to around that for you, around that age when you think about when the kids are, it's crazy, the kids are growing and all that stuff. What would you say to her today? Go back to the little girl that younger you, and what would you say to her
Yeah.
to take that time to start incorporating time for herself?
Just like what I was saying earlier, it's okay to do it. You need it. I ran on empty for many, many years, and that's not healthy. It was very unhealthy. And so you need that time away. Like I said, it doesn't have to be days at a time. It doesn't have to be, out of the state. It can be a trip to Sonic by yourself. Go get a drink and, just sit in your car and flip through your phone or just sit and listen to the radio or something. You need to take a break. I mean, even 15, 20 minutes a day if you're able to, but you need a break. Moms need that.
And I love that you said like, go to I love Sonic. So go,
Yeah,
even if
me
it's just
too.
something as simple as that, it can be
Yeah,
that way. I know for me, my kids, my oldest, when I started really realizing, oh my God, this is a problem for me. My oldest is about to go to college. And I was
yeah,
like, wow, I haven't done nothing for myself. I actually had sat through a 6 weeks course on identity and destiny. And at the end, I had to give my I am statement. And I was still saying I was all the titles I wore, right? I didn't
right.
know. And my friend was like, where have you been for 6 weeks? Excuse me? Like, what's happening there? Are you not paying attention? And I was like, darn, you're right. I didn't get it. And then that was the aha moment. Like, I've got to do something and get over this people pleasing addict, get over thinking that my kids need me every second of the day. And so I
Right.
literally went home after that. I think Matthew was just starting his senior year when I took that course. And I started communicating to my husband, like, I don't know who I am. Like, I got to figure this out. And so when I started realizing that I was always on the go, I was doing everything for everybody, but nothing for
Right.
me. I decided, okay, one hour a day, and usually it was at the end of the day. I was like, I'm going to go sit in my room, whether I read a book, whether I do nothing, whether I watch TV,
Right.
whatever it was, I'm going to go have some quiet time. And
Yeah.
so if you are listening and you're hearing us talk about this and this resonates with you, start with 5 minutes a day. Just
Yeah.
create 5 minutes a day. Go outside. Sit in the bathroom with the door locked.
Right.
With water running or something, and just
Yeah.
take 5 minutes and think about the things that you love about yourself. Think about the things that you're excited that are happening in your life. Like, try to think positive thoughts. I often hear about affirmations. What are your thoughts on affirmations?
Um, for me, because I'm a Christian, my affirmations come from whatever God says about me. So I think it's good. I think we're supposed to speak life and we're supposed to be positive. But I'm not good at all. There's nothing good in me, but God in me is good, and He makes me strong, and He makes me wise. And I think for me, that's where they have to come from. Is whatever God says about me, then yes, that's what I am, and I have to remind myself often, that I'm able to do these things because He helps me, and um I am strong and courageous even when I don't feel like it.
See, those are
That's
those
what He
are
says,
yeah, that's exactly, like, those are affirmations that,
right?
and whether, like you said, it can come from God, just our own thoughts. It's so important to have them and then learn to start believing them, right? Because when
Right?
your face just lit up when you talked about them, like, you believe them, and
Yeah,
that's important. I love to share. Like, I had a client one time. They're like, I don't do affirmations. I think it's foo foo. I don't believe in it. And I'm like, well, why don't you believe it? I'm going to stand in front of the bank in the mirror and tell my bank account I got all the money in the world and I have $1 in my bank account. You want me to believe that? I'm like, oh, I can see where you're coming from on that. I go, okay, so let's flip it. And it was actually this client that, like, I was like, we're going to flip it around a little bit. So I was like, what if you said to yourself, all right, and I think we were talking about, like, okay, I'm going to do activities today that are going to allow me to bring abundance into my life. Like, so you're not
there you
telling
go.
yourself you have money in the bank account. You're saying, I'm going to
Right?
do things that are going to allow me to bring abundance in my life. And they're like, oh, I can do that.
Yeah.
I can do that. And I always love to share the story May. Oh gosh, I'm completely drawing a blank on her name now. Not Matt. I did not want to say the one. She's a singer. She's escaping me right now. But she had a baby, and Megan Trainor. Megan Trainor.
Oh,
She had her first baby, and I guess she was struggling with how she looked and everything. And her therapist said, I want you to go home and I want you to stand in front of the mirror naked. And I want you to find something beautiful about yourself. And
yeah.
I remember her saying, I felt that was the most dumbest thing anybody could tell me to do. Why am I going to stare? And I'm like, I could get that, not want to stand naked in the mirror.
Right.
But she said I don't know, maybe it was the first week, 2 weeks. And she finally was like, oh, that role right there is because I had my baby, right? Like, she started finding those things that,
Yeah.
like, oh, that's why it felt so good, right? And then, and so I think wherever it comes from for somebody, I think it's important,
Yeah.
like you said, like what God puts on your heart for that day. I think it's important that we have to listen to that inner voice, like that inner voice, whether it's God for you, whether it's just yourself believing in something yourself, that it's there. We have it inside of us. We just have to
Right.
feel it coming out. And I'm like you. I mean, God speaks to me in different ways about things that are happening in my life, and how am I going to move forward, and what am I going to do? What do I want to bring to my life?
Yeah.
I think it's so, so important. So I want to shift a minute to your
Okay.
podcast.
Okay.
So you've had different nonprofits on your podcast. You've
Mhm.
had different, you're trying to get something from every state. I think that's
Yeah.
so cool. So once you finish the states, you're going to go for countries.
I guess I am. I mean, I've kind of done some countries now without even that wasn't my goal. I got a referral for the first one, and then that Facebook group that you added me to. I've gotten two guests from there, and one of them was the woman this morning from Australia.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, I know, and so I am not definitely not opposed to reaching out to other countries, and I just think it's great. And I don't have millions of listeners. I don't have I'm still, learning and growing. But I feel like any way I can highlight what they're doing for people to see and hear about, I think is good because what I want is somebody to listen to an episode and see what these people are doing over here that maybe they can implement where they live. This is a good idea. Maybe I could start doing this, somewhere else. So that's my goal. All over the world. Who knows?
I love that. I love that. So thinking about like some of the nonprofits you've heard, if you can recall, what's the most unique one you've heard so far?
Oh gosh. The other day I talked to a lady in Alaska. They have a program, it's called Brave Heart Volunteers, and they train people to spend someone who's in their last days. They provide companionship for people in their last days because there are people that are there with, that have no family and they're dying alone. And so they train volunteers, which I think was incredible.
Wow.
I talked to a woman in Virginia. They have a 150-acre farm and they grow food only to give away to food pantries and places. They don't sell it. They don't keep it. They give it all away. They have thousands of volunteers that maintain the garden all year. I mean, just incredible stuff.
That's amazing. I love those stories because, people that are doing something in the world to like, the people in Alaska having come, because there are so many people that do die alone and they have that somebody there those last days. I think it's so powerful. So when my son passed, he had his biological aunt. She had honored him really beautifully. He loved the beaches, really beautiful like ceremony for him. But I believe if I remember right, she calls herself I think it's a grief doula. So she sits with people that are, a death doula. I'm sorry, somebody who's about to pass. So she has a whole like ceremony. She helps them create around that, like make it very beautiful for them and the family. I'm like, wow, that's so, how unique, to do things like that, to give people that comfort, because it's scary, it's definitely scary. And then then you go all the way to Virginia and think, wow, somebody's taking all their land and growing food to give back. That is just like so amazing. I just love
it.
It's
incredible. Yeah. And they're all like that. They all just amaze me.
Yeah.
They're all very creative.
Cool. So you have this podcast you're doing now. Tell us, so your church came to you and said, we love what you're doing and come do it for us. So what will your podcast be for with your church?
That one is going to be called The Ripple Effect. And it actually launches on Sunday, May 12th. It was not something I was looking for or hoping for. It just, the opportunity came to me and I just said yes. And I'm just hoping it goes well, praying it goes well. I think it will. I'm doing 12 episodes and we'll see how it goes from there. If people are interested, then I'll continue, but it will just be me, the first 12 episodes. So
what will the episodes be about?
So the first 6, I'm doing a series called I Wish I Had Known. And like the first one that airs on Sunday, I wish I had known that raising my kids was the most important job I would ever do. So a lot of the things that you and I just talked about, I talked about on that episode. Things that I wish I had known as a new parent. I wish I'd known while my kids were growing up, I would have done differently, because I know now. And I talk about finances in one. I talk about, how much time I wasted wanting to be somebody else, wishing I was somebody else and not being happy with, who I was created to be. I was wasting time. So that's the first 6 episodes. And then the other 6 will just be kind of stories from my life, not really repeated from life stories, but just similar. They're all going to be, 15 minutes or so, not real long, but hopefully very encouraging.
That's awesome. And then where can they find the episode they want to go and listen to it?
So it should be on all listening platforms. Should be on Spotify and Apple. I don't know if they'll put them on YouTube or not, but for sure Spotify and Apple and Amazon.
Awesome. Well, we're going to make sure we put that one in the show notes. So tell everybody about your other podcast that you're doing as well.
The Life Stories?
Yes.
Yeah. So that one is it's on Spotify, Apple, YouTube. I do videos when I have guests. But they're all on YouTube, whether it's audio or just video. Amazon, it's everywhere. Mostly I'm talking to guests. I have guests lined up through almost the end of June right now. Sometimes it'll just be me. Just kind of share what's on my heart or things that I'm learning, or, I like having conversations. That's the way I try to run it, is not really an interview, but just a conversation with somebody and listening to their heart. And that has been the best compliment that I've received since I started, is that people say, it sounds like you're just sitting in the room listening to you talk to somebody, which to me, that's exactly what I want. So,
That's awesome. I love that you and I were talking about that before we came on here. Is like I don't have questions laid out already. I just love having conversations. I have in my head, what the journey is. I like it to be, but for the most part, it's like somebody might say something, I'm like, oh, let's go talk about that because I think that's
right.
really cool and important for people to hear. I just love that. So where can we find you? As if somebody wanted to reach out to you, what's the best way they should reach out to you?
Lifestoriespodcast.com.
Awesome. Yay. All right.
Yeah.
So we already talked about this before we came on the
Oh
show.
gosh. I hope it's a good one.
You're so funny. So we're going to shuffle our cards. We have our Better Questions, Better Life cards that are
Okay.
right
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, so I'm in Nevada. I forgot my cards at home. My husband came last weekend for my nephew's first communion. So
Uh-huh.
I'm like, I need my cards. He's like, that's what you want me to bring? I'm like, yeah, I have to have my cards. I'm recording. So I'm going to shuffle. You're going to tell me when to stop and then
Okay.
I'll ask you the question. So here we go.
Oh gosh. Stop.
All right. Okay. Your card says, oh, I think we just talked about something, but you're going to answer it anyways. How am
Okay.
I influencing others? How do you feel like you're influencing others in your life and around you?
I hope I'm encouraging them, sharing the stories of the people I talk to in my podcast. I hope that's encouraging to them that, what they are doing, I think what they're doing is good. And I want other people to see it and hear about it and know about it. I try to be encouraging to the people in my circle, my friends and definitely my kids and my grandkids. I want to be purposeful in the way I speak to everybody around me. But especially, I think about this new podcast that I'm doing, some of the things that I wish I would have done differently with my kids, I do with my grandkids. And you probably feel the same, with being purposeful in the way I speak, being not just having conversation because we have to do something, but being purposeful and talking to them and asking them questions about their life and wanting to be interested. And that's how I hope I am with everybody. So
Yeah, it's so funny how you said that. It's so different. Like we've raised our kids like, oh, when we look back, I wish, there's so many
yeah.
things like for me too. I wish that there's some things I'm so glad I did, especially, when I think about with my son Matthew. And then there's things that I'm like, because of that loss, I've had conversations with my other son to be like, hey, this is what I want us, want for us. And so it's really important that when you have those thoughts, you can start change them and working on them now too. I think I
Yeah.
love that you shared that. And I think it is different, like with grandkids and such. I mean, I know with my nephew, I'm like having fun with him, having conversations. Like tomorrow afternoon, we're going to. So I've been in Nevada since May 15th. Today is not May 15th, April 24th, I think it was. And I'm going home
Wow.
May 15th for a little bit, right? But it's been cold here. Like it's been
Really?
we're 4,000 feet above sea level. It snowed last weekend in the
Oh
mountains.
my
So
gosh.
my brother actually had to drive my husband to the airport. So I'm like, I haven't driven on snow in years, little brother. But it's so funny. Like, so my nephew's been like, I want to take you, Aunt Pearl, to my secret space. He has a secret little spot he likes to go play at,
Mhm.
right? I'm like, Sean, it's too cold for Aunt Pearl. I can't be outside right now. I'm like, it's 90 degrees back home right now. So
Yes.
tomorrow, I'm like, Sean, I was taking him to school this morning. I'm like, Sean, tomorrow it's gonna be 74 degrees. We're gonna go to your secret place. It's like, okay, go. And we'll ride the bikes to school too. He's like, really? I'm like, yeah.
Oh,
So,
that's
so yeah.
awesome.
So yeah. So I'm loving it. I love, like you said, it's a second chance to do things differently
Yeah.
and to be there for our kids. I think that's just so powerful. So I want to thank you for being on the show. I want to thank you for being part of the conversation. And if you're listening to us and you want to learn more, of course you can click subscribe down below. When we put everything out, all the show notes will be available so you can find out how to reach us. And I just want to thank you so much for joining us today in a conversation with Pearl. And I remind every one of you, excuse me, that even though I don't have my actual Pearl here with me, you are this amazing oyster on the outside. And as you're a little rough on the outside, but as you work on your inside and you open up, you find your inner Pearl to greatness. And I hope today you had a great time listening to the conversations and you go out and find your inner Pearl to greatness. Have a great day.